Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Happy Sunday to all of you ladies and gentlemen. I think that this is a very good article that has been written, and it's a very good read as well, so I thought I'd share it with you. And this has to do with those people, and I hope that some of you, not putting you down or throwing you under the bus, but some of you that are still living in normalcy bias and think that with all of the things that are going on right now, not only in our country, but in the world, that things are going to be just fine. That is what you call normalcy bias, ladies and gentlemen. And we all hope that things are going to be just fine. But ladies and gentlemen, what do I always say about hope? It's okay to hope for the best, but hope without preparedness is just hope. Most Americans still want to believe that the future is going to be just wonderful. And so they see absolutely no need to prepare for the chaotic times that are approaching. And ladies and gentlemen, all you have to do is look around. If you're one of the regulars here in the Alaska Prepper channel, thank you very much for joining in like you always do. I truly do appreciate it. If you're not and you happen to just come across this video, please listen and do some research and think for yourselves instead of allowing some news pundit in the mainstream media or legacy media, I guess is what they want to be called now, telling you what you should be thinking. Think for yourselves. I'm not here to tell you how to think, but I'm here to give you maybe a little taste of what may be coming in the future so that you can prepare for that. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? If the future holds nothing but great things, nothing but unicorns, spreading good wishes all over the skies, then that is awesome. But what if it doesn't? Let me tell you a quick story before we start, because you all know that I love to tell stories. And for those of you that are new, thank you for joining in. I love to tell stories. My wife and I go to a lunch date at least once a week. And we've noticed that one of the waiters that usually serves us, he hasn't been there for a couple of weeks. And we asked, we're like, hey, where's Bill at? Well, he had to go to the hospital. It was an emergency. He was committed there for a few days because he had to get an emergency operation. We're like, man, we hope that he's all right. But he's going to be out of work for about another week or so. And we're going to try to go back and visit him before Christmas so that we can say Merry Christmas to him. But he's supposed to be back to work, I think, sometime this week. What if it's just the 3 weeks that you're off of work? Can you afford to be off of work for 3 weeks? And if you can't, do you have enough food in your house to at least take care of your family for 3 weeks to a month, so it's one less thing that you have to worry about while you're sitting in bed because you have no choice? I'm going to do as I always do and read through this and probably stop here or there and give you all my opinion. Things have already gotten quite crazy, but they are going to get even crazier. Global food supplies have already gotten tight, but they are going to get even tighter. When even the UN starts using the word biblical to describe the famine that the world is facing, that is a sign that our hour is very late. Thankfully, we are not facing famine in the short term here in the United States, and that's great. But temporary shortages of certain items have already been popping up, and food prices are aggressively shooting higher. Now, I went to Costco yesterday and did a price check and a payday prep, and that video will be coming up later on today. So be on the lookout for it because prices are still going up, ladies and gentlemen. And Costco was packed. It had everything. It had everything, ladies and gentlemen. But the thing is that we are still in that part of shortages that are being created because of prices, meaning that people are not able to afford to buy the same things that they were able to afford a year ago. So there is a shortage in the household of those food items that you can no longer afford. And if you can't afford them, then you yourself know that the prices have considerably risen. Earlier today, my wife stopped by the grocery store to pick up a couple of things, and one particular item that used to cost about $12 now costs $25 instead, and we're seeing that all over. But thanks to the Federal Reserve, this is about as low as food prices are going to get. The Fed seems absolutely determined to crank up inflation, and that is going to have very serious implications during the times that are ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, the Fed is not going to tame down inflation. Inflation may come down a little bit, but unless they bring rates up above what the inflation rate is, it's not going to come down. all it's going to cause is a whole bunch of job losses. And since the Fed is still tightening at a very slow rate, in my opinion, the job losses are going to come in droves here next year. Some people seem to think that if they have stored up a couple months worth of food, that they will be just fine. In my opinion, you should have at least 1 year's worth of food in your pantry of things that you normally eat. And the more, the better. Just remember to rotate your stock. Unfortunately, that is not the reality that we are facing, they say. The truth is that you should have enough food to feed every single person in your household for an extended period. And many of you will need much more than that. Because when things get really crazy, many of the friends, neighbors, and extended family members that neglected to prepare will come knocking on your door asking for help. And what are you going to do, ladies and gentlemen, when they come knocking on your door? When your brother or your sister, right, or your cousins or your neighbors that live right next door come knocking on that door, what are you going to do? You have to make up your mind now and make a plan. I'm not here to judge anyone. Me personally, I'm going to give until it hurts because that's just who I am. But what are you going to do? That's the question that you need to ask yourself. There are some people that would turn away those friends, neighbors, and extended family members, but I could not do that, he says. Yes, they are at fault for refusing to get prepared, but I just couldn't turn them out into the street. And I have to say that neither could I. If you also plan to assist those around you that are in need, that just makes your job even bigger. In the end, there is a limit to what any of us can do. And so we will do what we can with what we have, and we will leave the rest to God. Amen to that. The overwhelming demand that we are witnessing at food banks around the nation right now gives us some clues about what we can expect as economic conditions get even worse. And they say that in Alameda County, vehicles are lined up as early as 7 in the morning just to get a little bit of food from the local food bank. They start lining up as early as 7 in the morning, and this will run for 6 straight hours. Next year, ladies and gentlemen, I believe it's going to be, man, it's hard to say that it's going to be worse. Because, man, how much more worse can it get? But in my opinion, it is going to get worse, and I don't wish it on anyone. It's just economics. And they continue to say that similar things are happening on the East Coast. In fact, there was a quarter-mile line at the break of dawn at a food bank in Queens on Saturday. I have someone that I talked to that's from New York who's a good friend of mine, and I talked to him about this here a while back, I don't know, maybe a month or two ago, and he said that not only are the food banks having really long lines for food, but that churches are also being overwhelmed with people lining up to get food at their churches. He says, I found it quite interesting that the New York Post is comparing what is happening now to the bread lines of the 1930s. And things are getting really bad. You know what the bread lines of the 1930s used to be here in the modern era? It used to be the SNAP cards, the welfare cards, where you can go to a supermarket or a grocery store and be able to buy food using the SNAP credit card. That used to be the bread line. But now, not even that is enough. Now people, even people that have SNAP, are finding themselves in food banks as well. Why? Because of inflation, ladies and gentlemen. This is the reality of what we are facing. So many people are already in desperate need, and this perfect storm is just getting started. In the Richmond, Virginia area, things are even worse. According to one recent report, vehicles have been lining up at a food bank as early as 6 hours before it opens. This is how desperate some people in America have already become. We are going to become the next third world. If you can't wrap your head around that, ladies and gentlemen, you better prepare. Because the United States of America, if we keep going down the road that we are currently on, we will become a third world nation. That is what happens when the government takes over and it becomes tyrannical. And if you don't think that this government is tyrannical, then man, you really, really need to wake up. And as they've already stated in the beginning, the United Nations is using the word biblical to describe the famine and starvation that are coming all around the world. The following comes from CNBC. Famines of biblical proportions are becoming a serious risk as the health virus crisis threatens to double the number of people nearing starvation, a UN body has warned. In projections released on Thursday, the UN's World Food Program predicted that the number of people facing acute food insecurity stood at 265 million by the end of this year, up from 135 million in 2019. That's almost 100%. And I would say that within the next year to 2 years, after we finally realize what a dismal harvest we had this year, not just in the US, but worldwide, I would say that within the next year to 2 years, there's going to be close to 1 billion people around the world that are on the edge of starvation, ladies and gentlemen. It's just mathematics. You add up the calories, and then you see how many people need how many calories, and then however many calories we're short, that's how many people will be on the edge of starvation. And the UN said that it projects that about 1/10 of the world's population won't have enough food to eat this year. So already they're projecting almost 1 billion people won't have enough food to eat this year. Sadly, even though we have already seen so many crazy things happening in 2022, most Americans are still not preparing. And so when things really start to unravel in a major way, most of them are going to be short on food and supplies very rapidly. Get it now. Goodness gracious, I know that a lot of people that are part of our community here, that they started preparing because of our community. And for that, I'm grateful. But if you're not preparing and you're hearing this, why are you not preparing? Why are you not at the very least trying to convince yourself that, hey, this guy that I'm looking at here, this guy's crazy. Convince yourself, prove it to yourself that I am nuts by saying the things that I say as far as you need to get prepared. All right? Because when you go down that rabbit hole, I believe that if you search deep enough and you're honest about your search, that you will find that you need to be prepared. And now is the time to do it. And so when things get really bad, people will be short on food. So much more is coming, but most people do not want to hear that. Most Americans still want to believe that the future is going to be just wonderful. And so they see absolutely no need to prepare for the chaotic times that are approaching. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you're preparing. And if you're not, then look at your child and imagine a day when your child tells you that he or she is hungry and that you cannot provide them with any sustenance because you just don't know where to get it. That's where I'll leave it at that. Again, I do have a fun video, I think, coming up later on this afternoon. I hope you join in and check that out. And I hope that you're having a great weekend. Other than that, have a great week ahead. Be safe. Have a great time, ladies and gentlemen. This is a great time of the year. Yes, the world is crazy. The world is going crazy, and that is true. It is. I don't say it's not, but we still have to live. But prepare as well. So have a great weekend, ladies and gentlemen, and a great week ahead. Thank you very much for all of your support. God bless every one of you.